Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Formula. This is our first episode reviewing the draft and some of these prospects. What we're going to do is we're going to go through our top 5 prospects at each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. And just, share our thoughts, maybe some player comps. We'll be doing a few draft episodes, as always. As it gets closer, we'll do our draft bets, which is, our favorite one. But we'll also probably be doing a mock draft here, at least through the first round in one of these upcoming episodes. You guys ready? Anything? I mean, I guess this is our first episode after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, this is where Super Bowls are won. It's the off season, winning the draft. So equally as important. It might be not as fun as watching football, but it's time to study, get all those scouting reports put together, and really play out the true analyst of our job here.
It's exciting if you have a top 5 pick.
Very. How excited are you, Corey? What do you want to do before we dive in? Let's hear what the Colts fan. And we got the Colts and Bears here. So we got 1 and 4 here. What are we hoping the off season looks like here?
Well, let's draft a quarterback. That's probably the number one thing we have to do here.
You don't want to go for Lamar?
No.
All right.
No, don't want to trade for anyone. Been down that route the last 5 years. We're good. Just start over and start building from scratch.
Build the franchise. I like it.
Any quarterback in particular?
I mean, we can get into it if you want to go into it right now.
Well, here, what we'll do is let Alex say what he wants the Bears to do, and then you just tell us which quarterback you hope
kick it off, Corey. You got the honors.
So, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping the Bears obviously trade out of the number 1. Hopefully still within range of getting one of those Georgia guys, and
I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually think the Colts are going to trade with them for the number 1, and then I think that they'll have both Georgia guys there, either of which I'd be happy with. But just trying to get a bunch of draft picks. I think that this quarterback class isn't as strong as next year's, but I still think there's enough teams that need a quarterback and are going to offer a king's ransom for that number 1 pick. So I'm excited. Probably the most excited offseason I've been or have had as a Bears fan in quite some time.
We guys got an absolute bag in salary cap space.
Yep, that too.
It's like almost 100 million.
Busy offseason for the Bears for sure.
Yeah.
Go pick up Saquon.
Maybe.
All right. So what we're gonna do is we'll start at our. You guys want to start at our number 5 and move up, or just start at number 1 and move down?
Start at the top.
Yeah.
I think we got a lot of different picks here. So
yeah.
Okay. So we'll have Corey start us off with his favorite quarterback of the draft and who he wants the Colts to draft. Sorry. This isn't favorite. I guess we're going by ranking, like talent, like who we think is going to succeed in the NFL or best draft pick. That's what we're going off of in these rankings. The best pick in the draft. So who do you think the best quarterback is in the draft to pick?
I think the most well-rounded quarterback is going to be Bryce Young. I understand his size is what everyone's talking about. I mean, it is what it is. You can't change that. You can't change. I mean, he can do nothing about it, but what he can do is be a really good quarterback. And that's exactly what he was at Alabama. In the past, I would say Alabama quarterbacks have failed in the NFL, but now with this pro style offense that they do run, we've seen the likes, of, I mean, I'll throw 2 in there. I'll throw in, Jalen Hurts for the time he was there. They become system quarterbacks and, have produced. And I think Young with the offense that they had, the wide receiver weapons weren't the greatest that they've been at Alabama. And he still had an very good season.
Yeah.
Probably should have been, in the championship game there, but it is what it is. They lost a couple games, but again, we knew that this wasn't the best Alabama team that they've had. he has the highest QBIQ, and I think he's the best one on the board.
Okay. Who wants to go next?
I mean, I
Oh,
respect.
Corey, I
that
forgot to ask. Is this who you want the Colts to draft? Obviously, then.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best out of the bunch, I think,
Okay.
in terms of ready to play right now.
Yeah, I think he gives you the best chance to win week 1 for sure. As a Browns fan, I've just been burned way too many times against the shifty small quarterbacks who thrived in college and didn't ever translate to the NFL. Examples being Johnny Money Manziel and Baker Mayfield, 2 Heisman winners, had amazing college careers and just couldn't find their feet in the NFL. So for me, I'm just kind of steering away from those more athletic quarterbacks. What I like to look for here is accuracy and decision making. I think that's ultimately what makes a great NFL quarterback. And you don't always need the, shifty athletic ability. I think it's a big plus to have. But we saw Brock Purdy, last year thrive. He's a good decision maker. He could get the ball where he needs to go. And ultimately, he found success. I think, he was in an easy system for him. But for that reason, I'm going with CJ Stroud, one of the most accurate passers in this class. The thing that I loved most about him is I love looking at the big pressure moments. His best graded game in college was against Georgia, one of the best defenses in college football, in the college football playoffs. So biggest stage, best defense, and the kid came out and performed. That's what I want to see, when I'm looking at my future franchise guy going in the next level. So for me, Stroud's going to be my number 1. And, we're starting to see some Ohio State quarterbacks finally succeed in the NFL. Shout out to Justin Fields. I'm excited to see what he does in his career. So sticking with the Buckeyes here to go with the best quarterback in the draft.
I'll piggyback off that, Nick, because I agree with you. I think CJ Stroud's the best prospect in this draft, quarterback wise. You pretty much nailed all the points here. Accuracy at all 3 levels of the field, great decision making, and he's got that pro build. He's 6'3", 220. Had the best EPA per play in pocket passing in college. Very low sack rate as well. I know he doesn't run a ton, but he's also not getting hit a ton. The number 1 and number 3 QBR in college in his past 2 years. And like you said, his best and biggest performance were when the lights were the brightest. 23 of 34 for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns on no interceptions against the best defense in the country. Just
That's
tagging
a
off
stat
that
line.
Yeah, just tagging off that a little, like a pro comparison. Guy I'd compare him to in the NFL right now is like a Dak Prescott. I think he's a guy who can run when he needs to, and is also kind of like a bigger pocket passer that I think's got a pretty high ceiling here.
All right,
PB, you're scoffing at us. So who do you like first?
I mean, it's got to be Anthony Richardson for me. He has the most upside of every quarterback in this class, and I don't think anyone would really deny that. It's more about people deciding like, oh, who's just pro ready right now. But that's not what I'm looking for when I'm trying to draft a quarterback in a league that's full of just absolute stars. Like you could I'll get into Bryce Young in a little bit, but like to me, this is the guy that you're going and you're shooting for the stars here to try to compete and win a Super Bowl. The dude is built like a linebacker and runs like as fast as a wide receiver. His arm strength is better than every quarterback in this class. The dude, I like some of his weaknesses are things that can be developed at the next level, like his pre-snap recognition and things like that. I think those things is what's going to be developed, and I think this is the guy that you're wanting in this draft class.
I love how you're all over all of that, and yet you hate on Justin Fields every single week.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Explain.
So how does Richardson's running ability at quarterback compare to Justin Fields?
I think Anthony Richardson is just on par with Fields, but he can be a way more electric passer. Fields is an atrocious passer. He cannot throw the ball. I know he hasn't had weapons, but that doesn't mean he hasn't shown anything. Richardson had no weapons in college.
And did what with that?
Yeah.
Have you seen his fucking stat line, dude? Like,
They're so bad.
Listen, all of these, this is a very weak quarterback class, in my opinion. I thought last year's class was weaker, but I think this is also a very weak class. And when you're shooting for a quarterback, one, you have to just be right that they succeed at the next level. A lot of these guys could just like I thought Malik Willis last year was the guy to get, just because I thought they were all bad. They've all shown to be bad so far, but the one guy that could maybe show a flash and have success at the next level because of their upside with what Malik offers with his legs, I thought he was the best pick. But so far, it's like you may as well not have drafted a quarterback last year. But you always shoot for upside, in my opinion. And Richardson has all of the upside.
It is funny that you two trash Justin Fields every single week.
Like,
No way, PB.
They're like this.
He's been in the league and he's
PB.
been bad.
No, he was pretty good last year with being
The
electric.
Considering
Bears
what
had
was
the
around
worst
him.
record in the league, and they believe that
The
he
worst
was the
offensive
worst-
line and the worst receiving
They
core.
did not have the worst offensive line.
The
They
greatest
did
thing
not.
about Justin Fields, his number one asset, is his ability to be a conservative passer and be picky. So he's not going to
But
throw
he's
a bunch
not.
of
He makes
interceptions.
this terrible.
So everyone was
mistake
But
all
you're
the time.
holding
but you're
the ball
saying
too
that this
long.
is stuff that Anthony Richardson can develop in the league.
Yeah.
Like, he's had passing issues in college against way worse talent.
But he's also Justin Fields has only had elite weapons his whole career. That's why Ohio State quarterbacks have never panned out. And I'll get to Stroud, who's way down my list. Name an Ohio State quarterback that's ever had success in the league.
Name a Florida quarterback that's ever had success in the league.
Chris Leak, come on, give him some credit.
Tim Tebow.
for a year, but
Like, come on. What are we talking about here, dude?
Yeah, you are.
The other thing,
like I
The other
said,
thing with
I don't
Richardson-
like. I'm not high. I'm not saying out here saying like when I said Joe Burrow will be a stud or Trevor Lawrence will be a stud. I'm saying I don't like any of these quarterbacks a lot, but Richardson is the best pick, and I have him ranked number one because of his he's an athletic freak. The dude he has the best arm strength. He's the fastest. He's the most electric runner than all of these guys.
the other problem I have with Richardson and why I don't have him ranked 1 or 2 is if he gets drafted that high, he's going to a team where he's going to need to start immediately, and he's not ready to do that. He's not. Like, these teams that are drafting this high and drafting a quarterback in the top 5, top 10,
like the Seahawks.
Drafting this high and drafting a quarterback.
Whoa,
Top 5, top 10, like
The Seahawks. What?
you're a little laggy over there, PB. No, that's good. You don't have to listen to his stupid take.
No.
Good. You don't have to listen to his stupid.
Wait,
All right,
am I
I'm
good now?
2B, number 2.
Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good. I mean, I do have Richardson. I agree with you, PB, that it's not the strongest QB class. I think there's a lot of other positions, but when you look at this too, I think some of my later picks is more representative of the value you get. You're going to have to spend a first round pick on Richardson, and he's quite the gamble. So I get why people mock him.
Yeah, no, I mean,
You have him ranked number 2, so I'm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a ton of good QBs here. I mean, I think he
Agreed.
could go a lot of directions, but I think, he could be a good athletic guy in the right system, but
well,
Like,
so
it's all
okay,
about
so-
upside to me. Like I'm not out here. I'm not taking stands on any of these quarterbacks this year.
I think he's probably like a Tyler Huntley at best.
What?
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't have him ranked number 2. What are you talking?
I'm not
He does
very
compared
confident
to
in
the
these
field.
guys.
he does compared to the rest of the field, is what he's saying.
Well, then I would have Bryce. If you thought Tyler Huntley was Richardson's ceiling, you should have Bryce Young way higher than Richardson because Bryce Young will be better than Tyler Huntley.
I don't think he's going to pan out, but that's just me.
Okay. Well,
all right. Well, we have a lot of positions to get here.
yeah, we do.
just
But I
spent-
know quarterback is always the one that gets people going the most. Though.
yeah, 'cause you have people out here talking like nonsense, but that's okay. Yeah, so
nonsense.
I have Stroud at 2. Again, I think for his physical attributes, he's the typical size for a quarterback. Would I be upset if the Colts drafted him? No.
Yes. You should be very upset.
Oh boy, PB.
Here we
But-
go.
But my only knock on
Early and
him
often.
is he, obviously had a really good game against Georgia. I mean, if you go back and look at his game against what was Wisconsin, where he absolutely fell flat on his face,
Yeah.
and he has the weapons there. I mean, by far the most
should-
talented receiving core.
He has the weapons. By far the most talented receiving.
PB, you got an echo going with that lag.
So that's why I have Stroud at 2, just because I think he'll probably be, I think he'll be okay as an NFL, and we'll just see how he can convert to not throwing to top 5 picks, and playing against obviously stronger, defenses in the NFL. And, that's why I don't know. I think him and Young can be interchangeable for 1 and 2. So, but I just like Young a little bit more as with the higher QB IQ.
Yeah, I agree with you on the interchangeability here. Bryce Young's my number 2 guy. He was elite at Bama. There's no question about it. And as you mentioned, Corey, the weapons that they had this year are not what they had in, past 3 to 4 years on the outside for sure. He's the most pro-ready guy, 100%. Again, it's going to be a matter of, can he stay healthy? Can he take hits from the next level of guys? Was it in that TCU game that he get banged up in the first half or something? He had to sit for a little bit of it. Anyways, again, the size is really the only knock that anyone has on him. Everything else is there in terms of being pro ready. I just think that you're gambling on him being able to take hits at the next level, and that's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But again, everything else, decision making, pocket presence, playmaking, accuracy, he's got it all. So would not be shocked to see him have a very solid career. I just think it's a matter of staying healthy for him.
Yeah. Okay. The one thing before about his size that I failed to mention in previous, and I'll just mention really quick, with the way the NFL is geared now to protecting quarterbacks,
Good point.
you're not seeing as many big hits on the court. I mean, obviously they still happen. It's football, like big hits happen. So you don't see him as much. And he's not really a huge running quarterback. So he's not taking the extra hits on the sideline, or at his ankles or knees when he's running like a Lamar Jackson or, just any mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why, size, it is what it is. And, Drew Brees was small, and he played in the era where, Bounty Gate was a foot, and, he won a Super Bowl, and everyone said he can't see over an offensive line, and he did pretty well. So
yeah, Russ too, another guy who's fairly undersized.
Yep.
No, that's a good point. The rules are definitely in favor of the QBs.
For me, my second quarterback is Levis. I think, again, my philosophy for drafting quarterbacks is all about upside. And this dude played with, and I, when I first heard, I was like, oh, who's this guy? And I originally had Young ahead of him just in the ranks, but I switched this around because this dude actually has some decent upside. When Richardson and I would say Levis are the only 2 quarterbacks that I would just even want my team to draft in this class. The rest I wouldn't want. This dude played with turf toe most of the season and still had a 90.6 overall grade against, SEC competition. He had over 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns playing with this. He's a dual threat, which this league demands more and more of every year. Like, you see guys that, unless you're someone like Joe Burrow or so that isn't that mobile and just an incredible pocket passer, you're Burrow has been to a Super Bowl, hasn't won one. I don't know. These dual threats are becoming more and more needed and demanded in this league. And I think his biggest struggle was turnovers and trying to do too much with the ball. But I mean, he played for Kentucky. And like when you're like whether you lose by like 40 or like the dude was trying to stay in games sometimes, and sometimes taking some chances, you turn the ball over. But yeah, this is a guy like if you're sitting there as a Colt, for me it's Richardson. It's definitely tier one, like by a good amount. But I think this Levis is the next guy that you'd want.
Interesting take. I don't have him till QB5. I mean,
Same.
the one thing I did like about him, his head coach was from the LA Rams. I think his name was Liam Cohn. So he ran a familiar NFL offense, I think, so that at least playbook transition might be easier for him. That might give him a shot. Definitely battle tested in the SEC too. So, I have him there, but I think there was a lot better prospects to put him at 2. So I have him at 5.
The only thing, I mean, I don't mind Will Levis as he's my next pick here at 3. The one knock on him is what PB mentioned. He trying too much. I understand, you're in college and you're trying to win games and whatever it might be. And like you said, if you lose by 40, if you lose by 7, it's still a loss. But I think his decision making needs to come a long way. I don't think he can read the field as well as you want for a pro style quarterback right now. Obviously, that's something that can maybe, transition into the NFL, but that's definitely a lot harder to do than just being like, hey, I mean, the NFL game is extremely fast and it's nothing like college. So obviously with him being mobile, having like the mobility of like a Josh Allen and be able to get out on the outside and extend plays is what you kind of want to see. But, the decision making reminds me of someone who we all truly love in Carl Wentz. It's just like trying to do too much, and that can hurt you. And like, I saw even with Andrew Luck was a prime example of doing that and trying to do way too much on each play. And it's like, dude, take a play off. Like, it's okay to punt. I'm not comparing. Yeah, I'm not comparing.
Significantly more talented.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Levis has the arm strength. He kind of reminds me of like a Matthew Stafford mixed with a Carl Wentz. So I have him at 3.
Just electric on the ground than Carl Wentz.
I was comparing his decision making to a Carl Wentz.
Okay. All right. So you have him at 3, Corey.
Yeah.
At 3, I've got Anthony Richardson. We've already talked ad nauseum about him already. Just would like to add that out of 123 eligible QBs in college this past year, he was 86th out of 123 in passing EPA and 111th out of 123 in on-target rate throws under 9 yards. He also had 4 games with a completion percentage of under 50. So, yes, there's a ton of upside. Yes, he is built like a Clydesdale. He can run. He's a big dude. He's got arm strength, but the inconsistency, I think, is going to be his downfall. And I think if he gets to a system like Seattle, or if he goes and he drops a little bit to a team where he can sit for a year or two, I think he has a much better career than getting drafted in a spot where he's got to start day one. I think he's going to take a lot more time than CJ or Bryce Young. And so that's why I've got those 2 guys ahead of him.
West Coast teams better stay away from him.
Well,
and hit the short passes. Yeah. Well, my number 3 was Bryce Young, but I don't think we got to dive into him. So we'll move on to number 4.
No, this is my quarterback, number 3, which is Bryce Young. And I definitely wanted to talk about him because this is the consensus number 1 pick. And like, I know not with us, besides Corey, like, yes, he's the safest quarterback in this class. He is a guy that can immediately right out the gate take your franchise from maybe a losing one right into a winning franchise. He'll never win a Super Bowl. So you'll just be content with mediocrity for a long time, which is, I think, the worst thing you can do in this league. You just you're good enough to maybe make the playoffs or barely miss the playoffs every year. You don't have that great of draft picks every year, and you're just living in mediocrity for a long time. That's what Bryce Young is. And, he doesn't have the arm strength to succeed at the next level. He's undersized, like we talked about. And, we've seen guys like Brees and Russ obviously have success, but this is no Brees or Russ. Drew Brees.
You're saying Brian Grease?
Drew Brees.
Drew Brees.
Breeze.
like
with
a
Z.
wind, like wind blowing. In
He
the
was your
breeze.
franchise quarterback, and you can't. Oh God. Well,
He's saying
all
Brees like Brees Hall.
right. Continue, PB.
Someone call his wife. I think he's stroking out.
Always had an elite O line and the shoulder issues for someone undersized, getting banged up. Like could be an issue like at the quarterback position for an undersized guy like him. So I'm sticking with Young as 3. I think he's the worst pick of the draft because he's using tons of draft capital and you're going to be in mediocrity for a long time. Worst pick of the draft is Bryce Young.
Okay, hang on, time out. Okay, for you to say he'll never win a Super Bowl is the most
Correct.
asinine content I've ever even laid my eyes on.
Why?
Do you think people are saying that about Brock Purdy or Jared Goff, like some of these
Tom
random
Brady.
QBs that have gotten to Super Bowls?
What getting
Tom Brady.
this guy will never win a Super Bowl. What do you do when you draft a quarterback?
What?
What?
You draft a quarterback when you draft a quarterback.
Yeah,
Tell me what your purpose is to drafting a quarterback. What's your end goal?
you're looking for a franchise quarterback
No, what's your end goal?
to win games and win a
To
Super Bowl.
win a Super
No
Bowl.
matter who you're drafting, your end goal is to
that
win a
could be
Super
said
Bowl.
for
Correct.
anyone.
And Bryce Young will never win a Super Bowl. So why would you draft him?
Because I would love to see this. Can you just give us all the future picks as well?
Yeah,
while you're
okay.
at it?
Bring out the Magic 8-Ball. Come on.
Yeah, we need.
So how many
Bryce
is
Young-
Anthony Richardson winning then?
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson is a guy that has the upside to win a Super Bowl
How
and
many?
has downside to be just a complete dud. Like just
All right, let's not dance around this. How many
Yeah.
Super Bowls is Richardson winning?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm just gonna guess, I'm gonna say 0. That's an easy pick.
What about Will Levis?
0.
It's Lewis, okay?
If you would have asked me the same question about Lawrence, I'd give Lawrence 1. I'd give Joe Burrow 1. Like I would have said 1 for those guys, but I'm saying 0 for all of these guys because that's the most likely outcome in my opinion.
Well, sometimes things happen that are unexpected. That's why we love sports. And,
Well, I'm just talking about
I think
drafting.
a good draft strategy is also to maybe go for a late round guy. So my number 4 quarterback here is Hendon Hooker.
Second round, late round.
Yeah, I think he'll be a day 2 guy. I love the value you're getting for the pick at QB. I think he's just as talented as a lot of these guys coming out of the SEC this year. And he led one of the best offenses. They were ranked top 5 for a lot of the year. I like guys that could lead a good explosive offense. He's a winner. He went out there. He's a gunslinger. He has some questions around his age and maybe some injury concerns, but for a late round pick, I think you get a good value in him.
Yeah, Hooker's my 4th as well. Won 58 touchdowns to 5 interceptions in his last 2 years in the SEC.
Nuts.
Again, yeah, a guy. I think you're better off if you have the take that PB does, that none of these guys are on their way to winning a Super Bowl, waiting till day 2 to draft a guy like Hendon Hooker, who might be able to be a formidable backup for a couple of years, learn the system, and then get his opportunity.
Okay. Corey.
Yeah, I have Richardson there. I mean, it is what it is. He's athletic, sweet. He will have to sit behind a quarterback for 2 years. And the thing is, GMs and owners pressure GMs to draft players. And then when they draft them, they want to use those new toys that they have. So it will be probably by like week 7 or 8, whatever team he's on at, which I'm going to be thinking it's the Panthers. Panthers are going to draft him, and they have Sam Darnold who sucks. and they're going to be crappy. And they're like, hey, let's throw out Richardson and see how well he does. And it's going to ruin him. And you know what? Then, they'll stick with him for another year. They'll be like, okay, well, he has a year under his belt. He finished the season 1-8, whatever, going in year 2 and produce about the same and be like a Zach Wilson.
And then win the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, well, maybe
how's the upside for it?
Maybe in year 3 after he gets over the Zach Wilson comparisons, because that's where I have him compared to, not strictly based on his athletic abilities, based on all this hype that came out of nowhere, based on strictly his attributes. Like, okay, we saw Zach Wilson throw the ball 85 yards on a dime during training camp, during pro day. And everyone fell in love with him and was like, this is the next greatest thing. Doesn't matter if you can throw the ball a fucking mile. If you can't, be able to read defenses and be able to complete short passes and move the ball down the field, you will not have any success in the NFL. So I'm not saying he's doomed to fail. I'm just saying, like, the NFL, there's not a lot of time for you to develop in the NFL before you're, kicked to the curb.
Yeah.
Very rare. I mean, Jordan Love is probably the only quarterback right now that we've seen high prospect that's actually had time to sit in a fairly competent offense. So excited to see what he does, because that's kind of like an old school football mentality. It's like you get drafted, you wait 4 years behind one of these good QBs, and then you get your shot. Aaron Rodgers was the same way. So we'll see if we're kind of in the same sort of century as that. Running out of words here.
I think teams are realizing more and more, like, what the NFL is like. These quarterbacks are just absolute monsters, and they're looking at these guys like Young, like Stroud, like Hooker, like these guys aren't doing anything. Like, all right, we'll take a shot with Richardson. Like, that's their mindset right now, because you got to compete. Like, I mean,
no. Okay, hang on. Before you keep, yes, you do have to be able to compete, but it's not like these guys who, these GMs who are drafting these quarterbacks and taking a chance, especially if you're drafting someone in the top 7, like Richardson's probably going to go. You have so much pressure. Like, you're not going to be able to see him develop as a quarterback. You're going to be out by year 3 because your team is not going to be where it needs to be. Like, you can't, I think organizations don't want to wait.
Yeah, I think mindsets of the top guys, like the owners, and they need to be more patient. I agree with that. Like, these old heads in there that are just like you said, wanting to use their new toys immediately and see results just like immediately instead of having some more patience. Yeah, they need to switch their mindset too.
But that's the thing. You can't do that with a top 7 draft pick in a quarterback.
I think Seattle is the perfect landing spot for Richardson. That's all. That's what I'll say.
If Geno stays, or if they have no one.
I think it's better if Geno stays for at least one or 2 more years. But I think Richardson, like, at least he goes to a team where he, like, for example, he goes to the Texans. That could be a rough first year. He goes to Seattle. He's got some weapons right out of the gate. So at least it's a better situation.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, like, if you're a GM taking Richardson top 5, you're probably not a GM that's going to last very long, because the opportunity cost there, and that's who you're reporting to, the owners of these teams, that's what they care about. It's not about, oh, did you get the best prospect? It's at what cost did you get that prospect? And that's how they're looking at this. It's business, and that's why there's no patience for this thing.
Yeah, that's why I said
they could have had a top 5 player at another position who could have been a superstar. And
yeah, but quarterback.
Now you don't have a Pro Bowl guy who's selling a lot of jerseys. So, you got to think about it from a lot of different angles than just purely what QB can win me a Super Bowl. It's where are you drafting these guys, and what are you giving up to get them? So,
all right. Well, for me, it's Stroud at 4. I've already said that the OSU good quarterbacks come from that school. They always have elite weapons in college, and then it doesn't translate at the next level. When he gets outside of the pocket, he just gets frazzled. And when he's going to be pressured at this next level in the NFL, he's not going to last. He won't succeed. Okay. 5th quarterback. We can run through these because we've talked about probably all these guys, but
yeah, I got Will Levis here.
Yeah, me too.
Everyone's talking about him like he's got the tools. That's like the buzzword around this guy. And yeah, I mean he's got the right build. Has enough rushing upside for where the league's trending. I just think the inconsistency in decision making was extremely poor while he was at Kentucky, and I don't see him doing a whole lot in the league. He's a guy who I think becomes a perennial backup.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, I'm going Hendon Hooker here. I was between him and the kid from Stanford. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? Oh my God, this sounds so bad now that I can't think of his name.
Stanford quarterback.
Tanner McKee. Yeah. Kind of like he had a decent season at Stanford, not anything spectacular. Strictly just off his build in general. I mean, he's a 6'6" quarterback. So he has the build from. But the reason I went with Hendon Hooker is because obviously, he did play in the SEC and he had a good season there. He reminds me a lot of in terms of a quarterback who had really good success in college and then is maybe flaring out. He reminds me of Geno Smith. Geno Smith was an absolute dog at West Virginia. Was so good. Yeah. And I don't even know if he went. I can't remember when the Jets took him, if it was in the first round or second round.
I think he fell to day 2.
Did he fall to day 2? Yeah. So he just has that. I don't know why. Every time I think of Hendon Hooker, I think of why I think of him. But like the age and the coming off the ACL injury. Obviously, the ACL injury is not as big as it used to be. Medicine has come a long way since then. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just can't see him being more than just a decent quarterback to a backup quarterback for his entire career.
Okay. And I also agree with Corey, Hendon Hooker. Like, I wish I didn't even have to make a top 5 because, like, Hendon Hooker, he will never be a successful starter. He will be a backup. Dude's 25, major work in progress, but doesn't have, I don't think he has, like, the tools that Levis and Richardson has. Like that. I wish I didn't have to rank 5 because I wouldn't. But so what we're going to do, that was our quarterback episode. We're going to break this into just positional categories. So this is our part 1 episode for our positional rankings in the draft.
Let's list down 1 through 5 for each of us, just name. So I've got Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Hendon Hooker, Will Levis.
I have Young, Stroud, Levis, Richardson, Hooker.
I have Anthony Richardson, Levis, Young, Stroud, and then Hooker.
And I got Stroud, Richardson, Young, Hooker, and Lewis. Just kidding. It's Levis.
All right. Well, that'll do it for our first episode of the 2023 football season. This is draft season right now, but, once that's done, we get into free agency, we're going to do a lot more fantasy football content this year, like throughout the summer leading up to the season. So stick around for all that content.